Hey everyone, so this topic, I'm very interested to know more about this, like the effort of lead on wildlife, like how do we lead in this world? And Catherine, my, oh my God, girl, your last name is very new for me. It's like, do I hit it? Just Catherine with us, as you can see, she is really the expert on this, like how do we lead wildlife and what is some our other point of view how we can lead. So welcome to World Cosmic Summits. My name is Tanja Andersen, and today we have Catherine. Girl, you get to help me with your last name with us.
McGrath.
McGrath. Oh God, girl. Every time on this live, it's just like, oh my God, all the different names on people. It's just like I get to ask Google Translate, like, how do I say this last name?
It's all good.
Oh my God, girl. So share a little bit about who you are so the audience get a little bit taste on who you are they're looking at.
Yeah, so I'm Catherine McGrath. I'm from the Southwest Virginia Wildlife Center. I am located in Virginia in the United States of America. And so I am the director of operations there. So oversee the day-to-day running of the center, and I am basically in charge of all of the animals on site, knowing their medical history and knowing what's going on with them so that we can eventually get them to release. I have been doing this for about 2.5 years now, and I have a degree in biology. So,
That is amazing. So what was your lead or your choice? Why this choice? Like why did you choose wildlife? Like what is your a little bit story behind and your why behind? Because a lot of people is just like, what is wildlife? When I talk about wildlife differently in Denmark and also some people in US like, what do you mean about wildlife? Just thought that is interesting.
yeah. So I actually didn't really want to be a wildlife rehabber when I was growing up. My mom grew up studying, like, her career choice before she had kids was to study wolves. And so I grew up a lot about learning about her work in wildlife. And so I knew when I grew up, I wanted to do something with animals, probably become something like a vet, because that's what all kids think of when they want to work with animals, is they want to become a vet. And so as I started going to college and actually thinking about things, I wanted to actually go into research as well. Specifically, I wanted to research, say, like big cats. And so when I had graduated with my biology degree, I was doing internships and looking at things to build my resume so I could apply for graduate schools. And in that process, I applied to an internship at the Wildlife Center Virginia, here in Virginia. And I went through a entire 12-week, really intense internship with them. And I sort of just fell in love with wildlife and wildlife work. Being a wildlife rehabber, it's basically the only work where you can get hands-on with almost 100 different species of animal a year to just help them and help them get back into the wild. It's like no other career that you can work in. I'm really thankful that I fell into it. And so once I finished that internship here in Roanoke, my hometown, we actually have our own wildlife rehab center. So I started volunteering there and I eventually got hired on and became the position that I have today. So it's always been a love, and it's not quite the career path that I thought I was going to follow, but I really do love it all the same.
That is interesting. So what I did not get, like, of course, I also talk about in my past, like, oh, I want to get a bit and treat the animals, get into nature. I did not have that choice. I become an animal keeper or zookeeper.
Mhm.
I was like, nope, I'm not standing for that. So now I'm turning around. So what is your like education based on where you are right now? I did not get that, sorry.
Yeah. So I have a bachelor's in biology with a minor in psychology. And then I was eventually pursuing graduate school for a PhD, but since I've become the manager essentially of this wildlife center, that's sort of fallen to the wayside. I do a lot of continued education in that. So there's the National Wildlife Rehabilitators Association, and they hold a giant conference every year that I've been able to go to. We have a lot of online classes, a lot of textbooks about wildlife and wildlife studies that we have to read. So there's definitely a lot of continued education here.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. So I'm curious to know, like, what does it mean? Like, why is this topic so important for you to talk about, like, the effect of lead on wildlife?
I think it's so important because it's A, preventable, and B, one of the major things that we see animals come in with. So lead poisoning or lead toxicity is something that when these animals come in, it's we're consistently treating it, we're consistently seeing it in major groups like raptors, in possums, which are scavengers. We've even seen it in box turtles, so we know it's widespread. We know it has large effects, and we know where the lead is coming from. So because of all of those issues combined, it's something that we really try to campaign to fix because we know it is a fixable issue. And we know that the effect of lead on wildlife is when they have any level of lead, which any level of lead is considered unsafe, it is going to decrease their survivability in the wild. And that is why these animals come into us injured or downed or having other issues with that lead level that is treatable.
Oh, wow. So when you say lead, L-E-A-D, it's not mean like mean I lead the chains. It's not
Yes.
that, oh, you okay? It's like, do I get it right here?
Yeah. So lead as in like lead in paint, the metal.
Ah, okay. I mean, like lead, like leadership,
Mhm.
like just a short
Mhm.
point on how. Oh my God, girl. So tell us a little bit about like why is this a so big challenge out there in the world?
Yeah. So lead is a really interesting topic that a lot of countries actually have dealt with in different ways. So lead historically has been used in lead shot in waterfowl hunting. Both the EU and the United States have banned lead shot for waterfowl to decrease the amount of lead
Oh,
toxicity that we have seen in wildlife, which is a really great and grand thing. Unfortunately, with that, there is still lead shot being used, or there is still with fishermen using lead in lead sinkers that can get lost in waterways. We still see animals come in with the effects of lead due to those practices. I know for a fact in the United States, the major animals that we see come in being affected with lead are going to be those waterfowl. So things like geese, ducks, loons. It also really affects our raptors. So things like eagles, vultures are the most common ones. And then in the EU, there's an estimated 10 different raptor species that all have been affected population-wise by lead. Alongside the buzzards are the highest species of concern.
that is so crazy. That is so crazy. So how do we provide it? Like, what is the solution for us to stop it so that it don't get more of the high level as it does right now into wildlife?
Yeah, so the two major issues that we find when we're talking about lead, we're talking about lead toxicosis and we're talking about these animals coming in. The first one is the obvious one that we can really sort of campaign going forward to get rid of, and that is hunters using lead shot. So right now, when a hunter is out hunting any sort of animal, they are using a bullet that is coated in copper but is full of lead. So when it hits an animal, it shatters, and the animal is full of lead bits, essentially. So what we run into the issue with lead and lead shot is that when animals are shot with lead and then the hunter, say, field dresses them, so hangs them up, removes the guts, removes affected flesh that they don't want, they tend to leave those in the woods, and those are called gut piles. In theory, that is perfectly fine. But when in practice, when we're using these lead bullets, any of the meat that has lead bits in it, if it's eaten by a scavenger, say something like a Virginia possum, which is a scavenger we have here, or say a eagle flies down and thinks it a quick meal because they're too lazy to go hunting, then that lead gets in their system. And
Yeah.
so the same reason that we have replaced lead pipes for drinking water, we don't want lead to be in anyone's system because of the variety of effects it causes. So a piece of lead as small as a grain of sand can cause severe lead toxicity in bald eagles or in any other eagle or wildlife. So it only takes a very, very little amount for these animals to become sick from lead toxicity. So that's the major one. And unfortunately, very few bans have gone forward in place to prevent the effects of that sort of lead shot that is used in other animals. The reason that they fully banned the effects of lead shot in waterfowl is because they knew that waterfowl was being affected by lead from animals that were shot and then had gotten away. But because, and then those pieces of lead has also gotten in the waterway, and then you have other animals that might, be dabbing for food and might eat those pieces of lead. So while they removed that from what was going on from the entire like lineage, I would say, of lead poisoning, they thought that the fact that these animals were shot on land, thus it's not going to get into the waterway, sort of forgetting the fact that people leave gut piles or other pieces that might get ingested by wildlife. They didn't cut off that bit or think about that bit yet. So the majority of animals that we see when they come in, we can actually take x-rays and see lead in their digestive system, or see sometimes, unfortunately, even though it's illegal, that they have been shot themselves, and that's how they get that lead in their system when they come into us. And while we say it's raptors, raptors are the main species that are being affected by lead, more and more now we're seeing these other scavengers like possums, maybe raccoons, come in with that same level of lead and lead toxicity. Uh, Luckily, some states have gone forward with a full lead ban where they have said there are no more lead bullets. California is a big example of this. The issue then lies in how well the state informs hunters, because hunters are in the United States one of the best forces for conservation, actually. So the way that it works in the US right now is the DWR, which is the Department of Wildlife Resources, the state governmental agency that monitors and takes care of wildlife, is actually funded a lot by hunting licenses. So these people who want to go out and hunt support the DWR, which then in turn support wildlife. So unfortunately, if we just put forward a complete ban, and then we strictly enforce that, we lose some of the goodwill that we have with hunters. And that makes taking care of wildlife a little bit harder overall. So there is this really delicate balance that we need to strike when we're thinking about banning lead bullets, about, how are the people that are using these going to feel? What alternatives are we going to have? And then even what do those alternatives cost? Because right now, lead bullets are going to be the cheaper option. They do make full copper bullets, which are an option that do not leave any lead. They do not leave any bits of any sort of metal in the flesh of the animal. So it's safer, honestly, for the hunters as well, because we don't want the hunters themselves eating
Okay.
lead, which does happen when you're using lead bullets. You do have the, fear of that little bit of lead that goes through the animal might also end up in part of the animal that you're eating. Um, so there are definitely options to go forward there. And slowly and with consideration start banning the use of lead bullets hunting other wildlife. So that way we can remove that at least from the system of lead toxicity. The second big one is lead sinkers, which are used in fishing, which fishing lines, fishing hooks are always a very, very large issue overall with wildlife. We consistently will have animals come in with fishing line around their legs or hooks in their mouths, like with geese, because people do not properly clean up their fishing gear, unfortunately. And so lead sinkers are a part of that. Animals will swallow the whole sinker. And then, of course, if you have a sinker out in a lake, it's going to be slowly degrading and leaching lead into that water system, where we have found that, leaving things that are lead out in the environment can even go into plants and grass. And so you have grazing animals that might eat these plants and grass and also gain those level of lead. Lead is really insidious because no lead level is a good lead level, and each animal is affected differently by the lead level that they receive. We have some animals come in with a higher lead level of like 10, which act perfectly fine, aren't showing any signs of lead toxicosis or anything like that. They come in for a different issue, like they were hit by a car and now they have a broken wing. Whereas we will have animals come in with a lead level of 4, which is rather low, and so these guys, however, will have really, really heavy signs of lead toxicosis where they can't stand, they're having neurological issues, they're really skinny, they're unable to fly, all of these things, just because they have a lower tolerance for that lead. So you never can guess about what lead level an animal might even have from either the environment or from that direct source. So, of course, the other way to slowly get rid of the lead that is in our environment is to ban or those lead sinkers, offer other alternatives, and also really encourage fishermen in general to clean up the things that they are leaving behind.
Yeah, it's crazy. How do the government look at this with the lift? Like, where is the government in this picture to protect like the wildlife and our nature?
Yeah, so like I said, in California, the big reason that they banned lead bullets fully is we have the endangered California condor out there, and they noticed that with rejuvenation efforts for that species, that they were being affected by lead, and that the big way to get rid of it was just do a complete lead ban. But as I said, that caused some upset in the community because you have to
Yeah,
have
of
that
course.
delicate balance of moving forward. So the government definitely knows about the issue, and different governments have taken different steps to go forward and start banning, lead resources.
Yeah,
Here in Virginia, our state, because each state is gonna
so
unfortunately
different.
take care of things slightly differently.
Oh
Um,
God.
there are different bills that we are trying to get passed essentially to start slowly banning the use of lead. So there is definitely support for it within the government communities to get that lead out of circulation and stop having wildlife being affected by it. But like I
Oh,
said, it's the really, really delicate balance of we need hunters and hunting licenses to help fund conservation. So we don't want to alienate them.
yeah.
We also don't want to alienate them because they themselves are usually great conservationists. Usually, when we're having these conversations with these hunters about supporting these bills, they don't know the effects of the things that they're doing, and they don't mean to. Like, we have had hunters who were legally hunting during season who accidentally shot a mother squirrel because with climate change, they've been having babies outside with the time they should have. And he brought us baby squirrels that she had had in tears. So these are
Wow.
people who care about these animals that
Yeah.
they're hunting because they're using them to feed their family. They're not generally meaning to cause these effects.
Oh no.
So when we sit down and we talk with them and we show them models that we have of what a lead bullet does, they're like, oh goodness, I also
Yeah,
want to change this. So it's a matter of usually education
of
and
course.
educating them about what are the alternatives that we can use? What are you actually doing? What are the effects of it? And typically, a lot of the community is open to that and they're open to that change.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. What I really have seen, like to meet a person, like when we talk about that, or we talk about like changing our lifestyle to be vegan, is really to me, it's like a choice is a choice. There's nothing wrong and right in it. It's just to the point we choose something else
mhm,
with the information or with the wisdom, with the learning we have on this point. And what I will have learned is to, as you also know, Catherine, is really meeting the person where the person is and not like judge the person for you should have this. No, like no, no, no. Sometimes like a person get to receive the information certain of time, like 75 times or one time. It depends about who the person is. Sometimes it is the first time with new information. Sometimes the person get to receive it a few times before this, like, okay, wow, this is the effect by this choice I make. What else can I buy so that I still can enjoy hunting? So I really love that, to really meet the person where they is and just educate the person from a standpoint of curiosity and not judgmental, because we never make the change when you judge a person, because we all have a background with us, like we all have something with us why we choose as we do in this moment. Like, as you say, some people have not the money to buy the more expensive things to hunt so that it can make a stronger and healthier footprint on the earth when they shot the animals, and some people buy the more expensive ones so that they can leave a healthy footprint when they shoot the animals out in nature.
Yeah. And again, with hunters, it's also even more complex because in the Eastern Coast, we have no large predators anymore. We don't have any wolves, we don't have any mountain lions, which are going to be hunting these wolves any or hunting these deer anymore. So, even if hunters aren't hunting them, the government is to maintain those populations in healthy amounts. So that way they're not decimating the environment around them.
Yeah.
So it's always these really complicated things. And we are sort of lucky in the terms of lead toxicosis that it does affect so many, what I'm going to call charismatic animals. So, like the bald eagle, which Americans love because we've already brought them back from one almost extinction event, and it's our national bird. Or in Europe, it also affects a lot of raptors, which have, again, that high charisma of we want to see those animals out there doing their best.
Yeah.
And so we're able to appeal to a lot of that love for those sort of animals. Where, if we're showing something like a raccoon, people are a little less, wanting to save all of the raccoons that we have that are in your trash cans. So specifically, people get really, really attached to eagles. I know recently there was the entire media going around with a raptor center in the West with Jackie the Eagle, who got injured by another fight and she was fighting illness. So she didn't have lead herself, but it goes to show, millions of people in the US were watching and hoping for her recovery of one bald eagle. And us ourselves at the center, we unfortunately had an eagle that was watched and was very beloved named Maggie, who had lead in her system, very high lead levels. And as much as we did for her, she also unfortunately passed.
Mm.
So these are animals that people also sort of know and are watching and really want to make sure that they are doing the best that they can do. So there is very much figures that we can rally behind,
That's true.
that the public knows that we could be like, this is what happened to her. This is what she went through, and this is how we can fix it.
Yeah.
So we definitely have those options. And we know it's possible because, like I said, we have both in the EU and the US, we have banned lead and lead uses before in hunting. So we definitely know it is something that we can go forward with, and that these are
True.
things that people can and will listen to eventually.
Yeah, true. And yeah, as you tell, like there's so many point of view on why this and why that. Like it's not only one road, there's so many things we get to look at that the society up to now is not aware about, how many things or how many like pieces of the puzzle that get to be in checks to make that change happening. Because it's not only one road, it's just so many things to look at. So tell us a little bit about like this like general knowledge about how the wild animals live in the wild where they belong.
Yeah. So all of so the point of wildlife rehab, I will say, is to get animals back into the wild.
Yeah.
Like they come into us, yeah, injured and orphaned, we raise them up, heal them up, we get them back out. That is our full purpose.
Yeah.
So with that, every rehabber has to have the knowledge of about 100 or more different species in their head that we deal with. So, because we're not just dealing with raptors, we're dealing with songbirds, we're dealing with turtles, we're dealing with snakes, we're dealing with squirrels, we're dealing with mice, we're dealing with everything that essentially can live in our state or in whatever country that you're working in as a rehabber. And so we need to know all of their natural histories and everything. Um, but yeah, so the main things that we're focusing on with wildlife and with how animals are living out in the wild is basically where are they coming into conflict with people for them to coming into rehab.
Yeah.
And so the major things that we see, of course, are like lead toxicosis. We will also see animals that are caught by cat, caught by dog, that are true orphans. So people cutting down trees when it's baby season, and
Oh
they
my God.
shouldn't be cutting down trees, um, or being hit by a vehicle. So we're looking at all of these things that these animals are doing out in the wild, that cause them to, come into conflict with people. Where are they living? Are they living out really, really in the woods, which are species that we don't see very often? Or are we looking at animals that are more, anthropogenic, that live with people in, I won't say harmony, but sort of live alongside people and are used to it? So those are things, like raccoons, foxes, skunks, regular songbirds. So the guys that you might see in your backyard all of the time, those are the ones that are more likely going to be coming into contact with things like your cat, your dog, or coming into contact with things like vehicles or hitting windows, um, which is another major issue that we see is a lot of window strike birds. So fortunately, when we're talking about all of these issues with wildlife and the reason that they come in, they're all fixable issues. So cats, we always encourage people to keep them indoors or keep them on leashes or have catios. And that's a very easy way to fix, roaming cats. Same things with dogs. Monitor your dogs outside while they're with you, or things like window strikes. We can
That's
put
true.
stickers on windows that scientifically show that birds then can see the glass if you put the stickers in a certain pattern.
Oh my God, that's so horrible. I have like a window and I forgot to close my door. So there's like the pigeon could see it. There was like a way out and it just slammed on my window. It's like, oh my God. So now I'm just like, I thought I have not bought the ticket, but I close the door every time I'm behind me. It's like, that's do not get to happen right now.
Yeah, no, it
So
it happens
horrible.
to a lot of people, and it
Yeah.
even happens, in the greater scheme of things when you're thinking about big cities where you just
Oh
have these
my God.
skyscrapers of just glass.
Oh,
So,
so horrible. Yeah.
yeah. And so, these are all things that once we see these causes of, just like with lead, there are steps that we can take going forward so that the animals that are most affected because they're simply living with us. You go into nature when you step out your front door, even if that is in a city. We're never going to completely get rid of wildlife. We have to learn how to live with them. And a lot of these things that the animals come in to us for are treatable things, are things that we can prevent them from coming in the first place versus, just treating them when we come in. We want to be proactive and we want to teach people, these are the way these animals live. They live beside us. These are the behaviors they're doing through things like migration and Lights Out by Cornell Lab, you know, bringing that information forward so that way these people know they're not terrible, they're not horrible. Yes, they're going to be in their yard. I know our front desk staff gets a lot of calls of people concerned about things like deer being in their yard. And it's
Oh,
like,
really?
well, your
I
yard
thought it
is
was more
outside.
like foxes.
Yeah, exactly. With like foxes, that happens a lot. I know, and I believe like Britain, where they have that very strong fox population. It's like, yes, the animals live there. They live in your backyard. You're going to see them. You're going to interact with them.
Oh,
This is
wow.
not something that we can ever step away from completely. There are going to be animals places. So being able to, when we see these animals come in for these certain reasons, then teach people, well, this is how we prevent them to come in for these reasons.
True.
Um, so
Also,
that
like
way,
when you have a fox in your backyard, be happy because
yeah,
it's take all the mouse and rat away. Like have a fox in your backyard, it is a healthy thing.
yeah.
I did not never know that before I was down in the in Kent in England, where I learned that is that when you have a fox in backyard, like there are so many calls about foxes and the what do you call like the not the cops, the cops,
Mhm.
the fox cops.
Animal
Really want,
control?
yeah, they want to get it away, and the
Yeah.
person like really educate from the love that it is a very healthy thing that a
Mhm.
fox choose your backyard to have the cub in. I was like, that is very interesting information and also very important to know.
Yeah. Because you really have to, when you're talking about wildlife, the other big thing that we think about is something called One Health. And One Health is the concept of when we're talking about health in people, we can't just talk about health in people. You know, we have to talk about the health of our environments, we have to talk about the health of our animals, because emerging diseases most likely don't start, unfortunately, with people. They're going to be starting with wildlife, you know, and with even going back to lead, with lead, what can happen is it can suppress animals' immune systems. So we see a lot more things that are contagious even to people or to pets like mange pop up. Same thing with like rodenticides, so rat poison. Animals that get poisoned even in small amounts by rat poison will have these lowered immune systems. And so these transmissible diseases like mange will get passed around a lot more by wildlife, meaning they're going to come into contact with people a lot more as well because you no longer have that barrier of healthy animals interacting with people. It's these sick animals interacting with
Yeah.
people, carrying those mites in the for mange at the very least, you know. And so when we have things like lead in the environment that are going to be affecting our wildlife, meaning our wildlife is going to get more sick, means that the world that we interact with is more sick. So, you know, outside, like I said, there's very specific lead sources that we can know and track, being able to clean up the environment from the lead that is already there, you know, doing environmental cleanups where we're removing lead from the system overall is going to make everyone healthier because we're not interacting with animals that are sick because of lead. You know, the animals aren't getting sick because of lead, you know, and then we don't have lead just leaching into the ground where anyone sort of can either stumble upon sources or get sick from it.
So interesting. So here the last point I was done because I thought just like lead was like lead because
Mhm.
it's feeling like the same word. It's like
It
come on,
is.
it's the same word. It's like, oh my God. So what is a way for people to make a different kind of choice, like people that hunt or people that do not hunt, to make a stronger choice by how they lead wildlife?
Yeah, so with people leading wildlife, we always encourage, like I said, with the lead, just if you can, you know, if you can afford it, to switch those bullets over to ones that do not contain lead.
Yeah.
If you're using lead sinkers, again, to switch over to a different sinker that does not contain lead, and or if you are using those sinkers, make sure you're watching them, you know, and using them and not losing them in those fishery situations. And then for just regular people, just getting along with wildlife in different ways. You know, you have to make very educated choices actually about how you're going to run your yard to make sure that your yard is wildlife appropriate. Um, for birds, you know, you can put out bird feeders, but you always have to watch for things like house finch conjunctivitis, which is an infectious disease that can affect uh, finches that gives them swollen eyes, makes them not be able to see. So you have to be a steward of your environment and know all of these things that wildlife can run into. So the biggest thing that we always ask people to do is think about the native area you're living in. You know, so in Virginia, what native plants can you plant that are going to support
Um,
your wildlife habitat? America is very big about lawns and just having green grass for acres. You know, get rid of it. Plant native trees that have native fruits or native nuts. You know, plant native plants that are going to attract honeybees and butterflies. You know, plant plants that are going to bring back the monarchs. You know, all of the things like that that you can do in your yard are going to help out wildlife. just at a minimum basis, we are in a bug decline right now. So
Oh,
a lot of our bug species are unfortunately in need, and people don't really think about them. A big American one is the firefly that lights up. They
oh,
have
really?
been,
Oh, it's
yeah,
so beautiful in the night. Oh,
they've been in decline because people don't know they nest over winter in fallen leaves. So when people want to clean up their yard, they clean up all of their fallen leaves, and that unfortunately gets rid of fireflies.
I
So
did
it's
not know that.
yeah, so it's these little changes that you can make just simply in your landscaping, that can really help out wildlife. And like it's these really little things that people
Yeah,
don't think about. Like leave your leaf pile, a little corner of your yard with some leaves. Just over winter, you can clean it up, in the spring, and that allows those larvae to have that place to overwinter and to live. So that way you have fireflies later on,
my
or
God.
planting, milkweed for monarchs so that monarchs have a food source is a big one that people already know. So it's all of these little things that help you be a steward of your environment. And you can even do this in cities, even by putting plants just outside on your balcony and bringing some of that green space into those cities is going to help, things even minorly, like the air quality. Because when you have a whole apartment block that is putting out these plants, it's going to make somewhat of a difference of having that green, having those plants being able to help clean up.
Interesting. I'm curious to know. So let's play this. A person have a mindset that the person want clean lawn, like all grass, keep it simple, keep it clean, and the person maybe a little bit blocked on planting a bit bushes or look
Mhm.
into like what normal lives here of plant, bushes, trees,
Mhm.
you name it, and also live leaf be where the
Mhm.
firefly lives. What is your intake or what is your like pointing you to talk with that kind of person? I'm curious to know.
Yeah, so the native plant push is actually something that's becoming very popular, at least in our area. So Roanoke itself is a big tourism area for things like our mountains and our trails. So we like trying to keep things as natural as we can,
Yeah.
because that's what people are coming to visit. And it's really been sort of a change in mindset of talking to people where, they might be keeping these lawns and then keeping all of these pesticides on their lawns to keep them perfect and clean. And then they're coming to us and they're like, yeah, I'm missing butterflies. We used to have butterflies every year, and now we don't have them every year. You can start with the simple steps of, well, in your garden area, plant some of this, or in this area, plant some of this, or maybe just for 1 year, leave your leaves. You don't start telling them, redo your entire yard, plant all of these plants, all of this. You have to talk about the more charismatic ones that they miss and that they enjoy, that, planting milkweed will help you get back the monarchs. Leaving the leaves will help you get the fireflies. And then when they get into it more, they themselves are going to start being like, okay, how can I help other animals? It's going to
Okay. One
be a
animal at a time.
yeah, it's going to be a buildup. Or
Yeah.
people might be like, I really miss my birds. Well, then you don't tell them about the bugs that they're going to bring in by the plants. You're going to tell them you're going to plant all of these plants.
Oh,
It
sure.
will bring bugs, yes, but the birds will come and they will start eating those bugs. So
That's
you're building an environment for them versus, they might not like, this one
oh,
type of beetle, but the birds will eat that one type of beetle.
yeah.
So
Oh,
you sort of appeal to what the people are sort of wanting to see. And it's
yeah.
that general ecosystem that you're building back, in these people's yards.
Oh, it's so fun. It's also so important. It's just interesting, like the point of view. Like I also say, like a human being cannot say, "Oh, I'm living a healthy life. I eat healthy. I have healthy food. Like I have a healthy life." Just like amazing, you do that. Like amazing choice. And what is your actions to do the nature healthy? Is like I have clean grass. Like I'm just like kept cutting everything off. Like it's like that's very interesting. Like because my how I look at it is just everything as you're so go in a circle. Like I
Hmm.
cannot say I'm healthy if I choose to say no to create awareness about how can I create my backyard or my yard or my home more like sustainable so that it supports the nature as the wildlife around me. So this is also like everything is connected. Like I cannot say I'm healthy if I do not choose to create awareness about what is in my backyard.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's the whole point of One Health, of that idea of
Yeah,
people aren't healthy unless everything around us is healthy.
love
You
it.
know, you have to keep that environment safe and well taken care of, or else things are going to pop up that are going to be bad for you and for the environment in general. It's these big cascades that we're a part
Yeah.
of that people forget.
Oh, so good, so good. So, Catherine, what is your last words to the audience? So, let's say they get to take one thing with them from this interview, a person that hunts and also a person that do not hunt. What would your words be to that two kind of people?
Yeah, so, as a hunter, uh, look at the choices that you're making hunting wise. So things like gut piles, if you're using lead, are you leaving them or are you disposing of them properly? It's very easy to bag it, haul it out if you can't change those bullets. If you can change those bullets, perfect. You can spend the extra money and both the wildlife and your family will thank you because they also aren't getting lead in their meat. And then for regular people, helping the environment is not a giant change that you have to make in your life. Like I said, with like lawns, it's that one little step forward that you can take at a time. Start planting, look up native plants, find one you really love, plant that one plant one year, or in your house. If you have a window, birds strike really commonly, start with that one window. You don't have to do every window in your house. Just start with one window. So just take a first step. And once you have that first step, you then keep going.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, your knowledge, and also your take on like live and also the way we as a human get to lead the change differently by make a change for live that is in wildlife or where we ever use it in our daily life. So thank you so much from bottom of my heart for you and for organization and for everything you're doing.
Of course.
Amazing. So also to you guys that is watching, thank you so much for bottom of our hearts. Please go to I just forgotten that words. Stay with me. Please go to Southwest Virginia Wildlife Center and follow them on all the social media platforms, as also sign up to the newsletter. You'll find that on the webpage. Where can people find you on Instagram or also
So,
on social media?
social media, it's SWVA Wildlife Center. That is both Facebook and Instagram. And I think technically we have a YouTube. We don't use that very often, though.
You have, I found it.
Yeah.
That's so fun. And you guys, I will share all the links under this video afterwards. So stay tuned. You can also go to them right now to click and follow them because it's so important you take directions after you have seen this interview so that the knowledge you learn, you really take it in to yourself and make actions on one thing as Katusha and really make it a priority in your life to create a new awareness about this in your life. So with that, Kathleen, thank you so much. And to you all, thank you so much for your time and see you soon, everyone again. Bye, everyone.